reactions. Hello monsters, and thanks again for stopping by. Now tonight's video is part 3 of Cuphead.exe, ms.chalice.exe. Now if you haven't seen part 1 or part 2, there's gonna be a little pop-up right about now. Yeah, and that link right there will send you to Cuphead.exe part 1. So if you like to check it out, I hope you like it. There will also be a link in the description below, and also one of the little things you can click at the end of the video. Now monsters, yes, we're in part 3, and I'm hoping to have part 4 out soon. So I really hope you like it. Is there anything you would like to see happen in part 4? If there is, leave it in the comments below. And monsters, have you subscribed yet? Well, if not, I hope you hit the subscribe button below. And if you dare, also hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever another video pops up. Well, okie dokie monsters, I got my honeycomb cereal ready right here in front of me in my plastic spoon, and I'm about to take a bite, and I hope you have something to chow down on. I don't know what you like, but I hope you like it just as much as you like the story. So monsters, let the story begin. Cuphead.exe Part 3, ms.chalice.exe. The quick recap is that I bought a laptop, and I logged into it, and there was this Cuphead game already installed. My curiosity did not kill me yet, but I felt the worst was to come. This version of the Cuphead game was disturbing to say the least, but now I was stuck to the laptop, not cause I was addicted to it, but I was physically stuck. I could not remove my fingers from the keys, as if the strings that held Mugman up were connected to me somehow. Mugman's movements were limited on his own. He had swayed back and forth like he was in a trance. Cuphead, on the other hand, was full of life that seemed to be completely in Cuphead's control. That's when Cuphead had said,
"Oh, we're not done yet, buddy."
And then I was set back to my desktop screen, where the third new icon labeled ms.chalice.exe was. I did not want to click it. I really didn't. I could do nothing to get my fingers off the keys. The sight of my blood had me woozy. I wanted to puke. I closed my eyes and dropped my head to where my chin was resting on my chest. I was having cold sweats. The pain in my fingers, well, it wasn't that bad. Ever been stung by a bee? Yeah, not as bad as that, but have you ever had a doctor take blood and leave the needle in there? Yeah, it was more like that. There had been something sticking my fingers to the keys and still had me. I was useless at this point. I looked at the screen and waited for the blur in my vision to refocus, and with a weak voice I said, I don't want to play anymore. I can't play anymore. I heard a laugh followed by,
"Oh, I told you, buddy, we're not done yet."
And then I was greeted by this tugging at my fingers like someone was moving them for me. Not like I was being possessed or anything, but like someone was yanking at the strings forcefully that had pierced my fingertips and were being pulled. I felt the strings slide only a little bit, as if they were being removed. If I was only that lucky. I could feel them sliding down, then anchoring to the inside of my fingers. And with this uncomfortable situation, my fingers were moving up and down rapidly on their own. The usual sound of the clicking keys were now a squishy wet sound. I only assumed it was because my blood had seeped around each key. I figured the only thing I could do was use my thumb to scroll on the built-in mousepad and move the arrow and click the ms.chalice.exe. And with a double click, I was now logging into the game again. The screen slowly came in, and there was Mugman and Cuphead just shuffling in place, and said,
"No more waiting, let's get a move on."
I did not want to cooperate.
"You better hurry."
This was so insane. But before I could finish my thought, Mugman raised his head from its slouch and stared towards me, like we were making actual eye contact here. His hand started to quiver, and then with a snap, he raised his hand and tugged vigorously on one of the strings that held him up. And with that jerk, my finger was forced to press the action button. Having the control button down, Mugman glided across the room with no source of direction. He was just hovering from one area to the other, only inches from the ground. It was eerie enough that I gave in and accepted the fact that if I wanted any chance to get my fingers free, I would have to continue. I really hoped that this was the case. I moved Mugman towards the exit door and exited the house first, and was followed out by Cuphead. There was still this red hue that blanketed the scenery. The difference I noticed were the glitched out spots that completely either scrambled an area and pixelated it out to where it was hard to make out. Places like the carnival and the garden were completely pixelated out, and where the casino once laid was only black patches like the whole place had vanished or something, or it was being covered by the black pixelated mass. However, regardless of the missing and glitched out areas, Cuphead was certainly eager to hurry on.
We need to hurry, or all bets are off.
Bets? What bets? I was confused by the statement and thought to myself, we never placed bets on anything.
I'll lead the way,
Cuphead said. There was nothing really left for me to do, and to avoid any pain to my fingers, I followed him using Mugman. We made our way onto the bridge, and there, covered in its own fluids, was the recently deceased Elder Kettle.
What? He had it coming.
Cuphead smirked. Cuphead then bent down, smiled at me just over the body, and then pushed it through the gap in the railing that spanned one end of the bridge to the other. And with a splash, the Elder Kettle's body was floating face up in the river. Water began to fill his gash wounds as well as his mouth, and he slowly sank to the bottom, completely vanishing.
Did you see that? Huh? Did ya? That stinker is a sinker.
I was completely disgusted with Cuphead's nature. But this was short-lived, and we proceeded on. We made our way to the main part, or the center of the map. Up ahead, just in front of us, was the old pig's item shop. And Cuphead smiled.
We gotta stop here real quick.
The door to the item shop was shut, and there was a big sign saying closed on it. Cuphead gave a wicked grin, turned to Mugman and said,
Don't worry, buddy. I got ya.
Mugman just gave out a groan, and behind the tape that covered his mouth was too a grin that was intent on malicious ideas. I only assumed. I could see the pure evil in Mugman's face. With no hesitations though, Cuphead reached behind his back and revealed the axe that he had used on the Elder Kettle earlier. With a pivot of Cuphead's foot, Cuphead charged and rushed towards the item shop's door and brought the axe down into the door and repeated this only a few times before the door was in splinters. Cuphead then entered the shop and things went silent. But just then there was a squeal.
Here, piggy.
The shop was bouncing and stirring around till the old pig fly through the shop door to exit and flee from his fate. But he tripped and landed on his pig snout. Cuphead, standing at the entranceway, points at Mugman.
Okay, Mug, it's all yours.
Mugman, more lively, started to tense up. I noticed his torso area bubbling in and out like something was wanting to escape. Mugman's gut bursted open, and wire strings started to articulate out of this gap, twisting and twining, barreling its way towards the old pig. The wire strings whipped around the old pig, around his arms, legs, and neck. There was nothing he could do to escape. The old pig had no more fight in him, as the wire strings tightened around each limb, and with the final yelp, the wire strings sliced and made its way through the pig's body parts and dismembered him. Mugman held the fresh sliced ham pieces several feet in the air as Cuphead pranced and danced underneath the dripping bloody meat, collecting the red warm fluids in his cup. The wire strings that were coming from Mugman had started to retract, carrying the meat towards the gap that laid in Mugman's torso. The side flaps of this gap in his torso closed over the meat. What an odd way to eat. Well, if that's what he did, was what I thought. He must have, because Cuphead ran over to Mugman and slapped him on the back.
You full now, buddy? Good. Me too,
Cuphead said while twirling his finger in his blood-filled cup. At this point, I really can't explain how much shock I had been in. I sat there waiting on Cuphead's next move. Cuphead placed his hand up to his chin, sporting a pondering look.
Well, I'm not sure why half the map is glitched out and missing. Had high hopes on visiting our old dear friend the devil,
Cuphead continued as he rolled his eyes.
But there is a new island that just popped up out of nowhere, and we're gonna go check it out. I'm sure there's something special there. Let's go see if the place needs a good cleaning.
I knew what cleaning meant. Cuphead was ready to go on another massacre.
I know where to go. Follow me,
he said. With no choice, I followed Cuphead down towards where the glitched out garden laid. There was a path that was untouched and led off of the map's view. We had finally crossed over and were now standing in a creepy old cemetery. The scenery displayed tombstones and dead trees, and unlike the previous map, was gray and dull.
Oh my, well look at here.
Cuphead said, a bit annoyed.
Aw, shucks. Nothing but a bunch of stiffs. Everyone's already dead. Well, that's okay. I guess we can just...
All of a sudden, before Cuphead could finish, a golden glow illuminated from a large above-ground tomb.
Aw, shucks. How could you let me forget, Mug?
I admit I was a bit curious too, to what was sending off this golden glow. It was nice to look at, so much more vibrant than the rest of the map and what the scenery has been. We began to walk towards the tomb, and were now standing in front of the doors. But before Cuphead could place his hand on it, the doors opened up on their own.
Interesting,
Cuphead said. On entering this tomb, I began to hear faint harp music. It increased in volume the further we journeyed in. And if it wasn't for that illuminating light, this place would have been pitch black. So we followed it, and continued to follow it, until we were standing in a large room. And in the center of this room was a jewel-encrusted vase.
Wow, isn't that pretty?
Cuphead said.
Mugman, bust it open.
I guess he had been talking to me too. So I moved Mugman towards the vase, and the closer we got to the vase, the more the screen began to vibrate. It was vibrating to the point that I was able to feel the vibrations. Whatever was happening was keeping me from getting Mugman closer.
Haha, silly. You need to free her from the clutches of the ghosts that dwell within here and give her protection.
Cuphead said.
But you know, nobody has time for that.
Cuphead quickly managed his way past Mugman, revealed his axe, and threw it right at the vase. The hit was dead on. The axe shattered the vase into multiple pieces.
And it's open,
Cuphead said, which I don't think this was a good idea. Now, when the vase shattered, something came out of it, and it laid on the floor. It was slimy in appearance, like a larva that was covered in this black and transparent red goo. Just then, there was this glow coming from all directions. The dark, unlit tunnels were glowing red as something or someone was approaching us. Oh God, what is it? I thought. Cuphead also, in this moment, looked a little concerned.
Hope you're ready.
And with an instant, ghosts filled the room, swirling round and round us, screaming why would and how could we do this? Cuphead had nothing to say, but started swinging his axe, and I too used Mugman to fight off the ghost. But it wasn't no good. Cuphead and Mugman's abilities were useless.
Aw, shucks.
Cuphead said as he snapped his fingers. While it seemed that there was nothing we could do, Cuphead, Mugman, and I simply just sat there and watched to see what was gonna happen. The ghost began to circle the slimy larva, and one by one began dive bombing down into the slime ball. It wasn't just a few, it was waves of ghosts by the hundreds that had entered this fetus-like larva. And it grew and grew and grew till this thing stood up on what I could only assume were legs.
Holy moly! What the?
But before Cuphead could finish, this black mass screamed, shaking the entire viewing area. My ears were splitting because of this noise. It hurt worse than my fingertips did. And with the warm, oozing sensation that flooded my ears, I was almost sure it was my blood. The screen changed and was now in a side-scroll view. Cuphead brandished his axe and threw it at the creature. That axe was followed by multiple other axes that seemed to come from nowhere. Cuphead's attacks were hardly doing any damage to this massive, grotesque creature, because with every hit that was not blocked, the chunks that Cuphead was taking out of the creature grew back. This thing seemed to be unstoppable. It continued screaming as it countered attack with shards of glass. I kind of felt like I needed to help. The beating that Cuphead was taking was well deserved, but I decided to try. I pressed the action button to move Mugman to the front line. I tried firing back with whatever ability he had. I remembered what happened earlier at the item shop. Mugman was indeed in berserk mode then. He had ingested the old pig meat through the gap in his torso. I wasn't sure what to do, and that did not stop the creature from attacking though. The creature stretched his elongated arms out quickly across the screen, hitting both Mugman and Cuphead. The force of the hit knocked both of them back, and the strings holding Mugman up jerked hard, and the excruciating pain in my fingers had me gnashing my teeth. All 8 of my fingers had pressed down on the keys at once. I don't know what really happened, but once I opened my eyes, Mugman's eyes were ignited. Cuphead seemed to have regained his composure as well. Mugman must have really felt that, because without a second notice, Mugman's torso exploded open, shooting metal wires in the direction of the creature, whipping and slicing the creature into pieces. Cuphead then quickly ran up on the chunks of the creature and rapidly hacked at them until there were pieces splattered all over the room. There's no way this thing could rejuvenate now, I assumed, but this was far from the case.
Wow, glad that's over, huh, Mug?
Cuphead said. I watched as these chunks of small red and black goo adhesed itself to the broken shards of glass that laid along the floor. The black mass was gathering the pieces of shard glass together and surrounding itself with the pieces. I watched, and to my surprise, I was...
This is Miss Chalice!
Miss Chalice. I never heard of her. The room was silent, and Miss Chalice just stood there, with a daze in her eye and some drool coming from her mouth. Miss Chalice had put herself back together well, except for the cracks that covered the side of her face. Her arms were covered in this veiny-like texture that stretched down to her white gloves, and from her white gloves stretched long fingers that almost dragged the floor.
Now, Miss Chalice has mood swings, but she's gonna come along with us.
It didn't matter at this point. I wasn't going anywhere, so I kept quiet. I proceeded to follow Cuphead along with Miss Chalice, while I was still in control of Mugman. We made our way back to the main part of the map. The map had not changed from its current state. Places were still glitched out, and the casino was still not there.
He thinks he can hide from us. Silly devil. He's hiding, I know it. This mess is his doing. Messy, messy. We have to clean it up.
Cuphead continued on and then called over Miss Chalice. He said something unrecognizable to her, then smiled. Miss Chalice then walked towards the black spot where the casino was supposed to be. Miss Chalice had then stretched her arms out. Her arms stretched out twice their length, and the vein-like texture began to bulge. And with full force, this black goo that made up Miss Chalice lunges out from her fingers and into the black spot. This had eventually taken effect, and there was the Devil's Casino.